Hello, this is Mr. Chabry, and we're going to go over the Fairy, Steel, and Dragon types found within Kanto. So this makes up what's known as the Fantasy Core. Of course, you can have a core with Grass, Fire, Water, which is, I guess, the base core that most people think of. But Fairy, Steel, and Dragon actually make up their own core. And since there's not very many Fairy, Steel, and Dragon types here in Kanto, we're going to combine all of those into one video. So we're going to start out with Fairy types, and the first Fairy type we'll look at is a Lowland Ninetales. So a Lowland Ninetales is a Fairy Ice type Pokemon, and looking at this thing's stats, its best stat is its speed, 109. This is a pretty fast Pokemon. Its next best stat is actually its special defense at 100. So out of all the Fairy types here in Kanto, this is going to be the fastest one. It's got an 81 special attack, which is kind of on the mediocre side, but it can still do some good work. You can give it Moonblast, Blizzard, and it can hit things pretty well. But yeah, the best thing about this thing is that speed stat, and it does have a cool typing, Fairy Ice. That is a neat typing. Of course, that's very weak to Steel, so I would keep that in mind when you're building your team. But yeah, this is a good, fast Fairy type. Next up is Clefable, and Clefable is a pure Fairy type Pokemon. It's going to be the only pure Fairy type here in Kanto. But its best stat is actually its special attack at 95. And that's also tied with its HP. So this thing does have good special bulk. It's got 90 special defense, so it can take some hits, and it can hit pretty well. It's kind of on the slower side though, but I could see Clefable working out pretty well. It does have a good move pool that it can take access to. It's got a lot of special attacks that it can hit things with. So I see Clefable working if you really want to use it on your team. Next up is Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is a Fairy normal type Pokemon. Its best stat is its HP stat at 140. That is a very good HP stat. However, it's not very bulky because its defense is only 45. Special defense is only 50. So that's actually on the lower side. But 85 special attack is okay. But yeah, this thing has a 140 HP, so that's actually going to help its bulk just a little bit. But I do say that this thing's probably worth passing up. Because it's not going to hit things as hard as you want it to, and it's not going to be as bulky as you need it to be with those lower defense stats. And the last Fairy type here in Kanto is going to be Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime is a Fairy Psychic type Pokemon, so that's actually a really cool typing. Its best stat is actually its special defense at 120. This thing, out of all the Fairy types here in Kanto, has the best special defense. However, it's only got 40 HP, which is actually not very good if you want a bulky Pokemon. So it's not going to take hits as well as you would want it to. But it's got a 100 special attack stat, and that's actually pretty good. Out of all the Fairy types here, that's actually the best special attack stat. It's got a 90 speed as well, so that's actually a pretty decent speed here. But yeah, I do think Mr. Mime, it could be okay. The main thing is its bulk is probably not going to hold out a lot of hits. Even though it has a 120 special defense, that 40 HP is going to hold it back a lot. So now we're going to shift gears and look at Steel types, and the first Steel type on our list is going to be a Lowland Sandslash. So a Lowland Sandslash is best known for its defense at 120. This thing's made to take hits and hit back with a 100 attack stat. However, its special defense is on the lower side, and its speed's on the lower side. So you don't want this thing to take a special hit, especially a Fire-type move. It is quad weak to Fire-type moves. So if this thing gets hit with like a Fire Blast, it is gone. There's no question about it. But I can see this thing working if you play around that Fire-type weakness. The 120 defense, 100 attack is pretty cool, and it's actually pretty cool to have a physical Ice type on your team. So I could see that working. So next up is a Lowland Dugtrio, and a Lowland Dugtrio is a very fast Pokemon at 110. That is a really nice speed stat there. And it also has a 100 attack stat, so it can hit things pretty decently. The big drawback though is it is frail. It only has 35 HP, 60 defense, and 70 special defense. It's not going to take a hit at all. So if you really want to use a Lowland Dugtrio, keep that in mind. It's not going to live a hit. It's more for sending out hit things and try to take them out. So now we're going to look at Magneton, and Magneton is a Steel Electric type, and its best stat is a 120 special attack stat. This thing is going to hit things really hard, and it's got 70 speed, which is actually middle of the road. Defense-wise, it's got 95 defense, that's its best stat. However, it has a 70 special defense, so that's actually on the lower side. And it's got 50 HP, which is actually kind of frail as well. But 120 special attack, this thing can hit things really hard. If you need a special attacking steel type, this is going to be your best bet. And it also has that electric typing, so I could see it working pretty well on teams. So I'm going to have to mention Melton as we talk about these steel type Pokemon. And Melton is pretty cool because it's the only pure steel type in this game. As of right now, though, we do not know its stat distribution. It is a mythical Pokemon, and most mythical Pokemon have a base stat total of 600, and a lot of the earlier ones, it'll be 100 across the board. So like 100 HP, 100 attack, and so on and so forth. But as of right now, we do not know this thing's stats. But I could see this thing working because it's a mythical Pokemon. Of course, it's going to have decent stats, so it could work if you really want to try it out. Use a Pokemon that's totally new. This is honestly the newest Pokemon out of all of the Pokemon. So Melton is a steel type, and it could work on your team maybe. We don't know its stats though, so keep that in mind once you plan out your team. So now that you've got your fairy type and your steel type, we're going to have to look at the last type for the Fantasy Core, and that's going to be the Dragon type. We're going to start off the Dragon types with Mega Charizard X. So of course, Mega Charizard X is a Dragon Fire type Pokemon, and the thing is, you're going to have to Mega Evolve it to fill that Dragon type role, because as base Charizard, it's just going to be Fire Flying. But once you Mega Evolve it, it's going to be a really good Dragon type Pokemon if you need one on your team. It's got 130 attack, 130 special attack, which is really nice, and you can switch it up. If you want to go for Flamethrower, you can. Flare Blitz, you can as well. And this thing has a 100 speed, which is actually the best speed stat out of all the Dragon types we'll look at today. So yeah, this thing has the best speed stat and the best defense stat out of all the Dragon types here too, at 111. So I can see Mega Charizard X being very, very useful on your team. Next up is Alolan Executor. Alolan Executor is a Dragon Grass type Pokemon, and its best stat is a special attack stat of 125. That is a pretty good special attack stat. 105 attack, so that's actually pretty good too. So you can switch it up as well. But it's very slow. It's going to have to live hits, and it's not the bulkiest Pokemon. It does have some bulk with an 85 defense, 95 HP, 75 special defense, but honestly, this thing's not going to live too many hits. It's not very fast. Its best stat is 125 special attack, but as we've already saw, Mega Charizard X has 130. So if you really need a Dragon Grass type, you could try it. I honestly would skip this though. So now we're going to look at the last Dragon type on this list, and this is going to be the OG Dragon. This is going to be Dragonite. So Dragonite is a Dragon Flying type Pokemon, and its best stat is a 134 attack. This is the best attack stat out of all of the Kanto Dragons. And it's also got 100 special defense, which is the best special defense out of the dragons as well. It's got a 100 special attack, so that's pretty okay too. It's got an 80 speed, which is actually middle of the road. And it's got a 91 HP. So this thing's got some really good bulk, decent speed, and really good attack. The main drawback though is Dragonite is a Pokemon that has a high level up requirement for evolution. So it's going to be a very late game Pokemon. But if you have the dedication to get a Dragonite, you won't be disappointed. This thing can hit things really hard. It has a wide move pool. It's a really solid Pokemon. Dragonite would work very well on your team if you really want to use it. So there it is, the Fairy Steel Dragon type core. What Pokemon are you probably going to use from this list? And put that in the comments. Give this a like, subscribe. I will see you in the next Pokemon video.